Malachi is my youngest brother. He's 8 years old. If you met Malachi, you'd think he was a normal 8-year-old. He's chirpy, he's cheeky, he's funny, and quite the ladies' man. If it weren't for the cane, which he uses to help him know where he's going. Malachi is completely blind and has no light perception. He has neurofibromatosis type 1, a genetic condition that manifests in different ways in different people. For Malachi, it came out as a brain tumour on his optic nerve that caused him to lose his sight before the age of 2, and has also given him other complications with his health. My family's pretty huge. In the house is Mum and Dad and 5 kids. Malachi, who's 8, Aisha's 12, Samuel is 14, Zach is 15, and then there's me. My name's Kirsty and I'm 20. I also have 2 older brothers. Tom is 24 and Dave is 22. Both got married last year, so don't live at home. So, Malachi was born in 2008 as the youngest of 7. My dad and Zach and Samuel all have an F as well, so we knew there was a chance that Malachi could have been born with it, but the severity varies from person to person. Zach's NF caused him to have muscle hypertonia and lax ligaments, so when Malachi didn't walk properly, there was concern that he might have the same thing. At 15 months old, the hospital ran an MRI scan and found a brain tumour that was crushing Malachi's optic nerve. Almost straight away, Malachi started an 18-month course of weekly chemotherapy, and it was at this point that I was referred to the local Young Carers Project, age 13, along with Zach and Samuel. Aisha was referred later when she was the right age. The chemo made Malachi really poorly, and even the smallest cold resulted in him spending weeks in hospital and having blood transfusions. During the times that Malachi was in hospital, Mum would stay with him and Dad would have to drive to the hospital after taking Zach, Samuel and Aisha to school, and then home to pick them up. At weekends, we'd all go up and see them, but sometimes it was too upsetting. The chemo also stopped Malachi eating normally, as it kills the appetite, so Malachi was fed through an NG tube that went up his nose, then down his throat and into his stomach. Myself and Zach, Samuel and Aisha took it in turns to hold the feed up and flush the tube with water. Sometimes, if Malachi was really poorly, Dad would stay longer and one of Mum's friends would pick Zach, Samuel and Aisha up from school and wait with them until I got home to take over, or we'd go to my grandma's for dinner instead. Malachi stopped chemo in 2011, but where it had initially been to save his sight, it didn't work. The tumour hadn't grown, but it hadn't shrunk either, so the decision was made to take Malachi off the chemo and do 3 monthly scans to keep an eye on the tumour. Malachi was still fed through the NG tube, but started a mainstream nursery and was very bright and always had a smile on his face, despite having no sight. Things relaxed a little at home, as Malachi was there more, but there was still the uncertainty of scans every 3 months, and he was tube-fed still. Around Christmas time in 2011, the hospital called my mum and dad up to London to discuss Malachi's eating. He was almost 4 and still being tube-fed. The hospital wanted to fit a peg, which is similar to the NG tube, but it goes directly into the stomach and takes an operation to fit. Mum didn't want Malachi to have the operation, so asked the hospital to give us until his 4th birthday in January, knowing that Samuel didn't eat until he was 4 due to a phobia of food. When they got Malachi home, he said to Mum, "Mummy, I don't want them to cut my tummy open," so my mum told him that he had to start eating. So he turned around and said to Dad, "Daddy, go to the shops and buy some yogurts." Malachi began eating smooth foods, baby food jars, yogurts and chocolate mousses. Then we moved him onto textured and then lumpy foods like rice pudding and Weetabix. It was like weaning a baby from bottles onto solids, except Malachi was 4. It was hard work, but so exciting. At first, we kept the NG tube in so that he had normal food in the day and then his 500ml feed overnight to balance his nutrients. Eventually, the tube wasn't being used and so became blocked, and we couldn't unblock it. So it was taken out as he didn't need it anymore. This was huge for Malachi, as his whole life he'd been tube-fed and at one stage had forgotten how to swallow. Zach, Samuel, Aisha and I now took it in turns to feed Malachi properly. Things seemed to settle a little. We moved house from a 2-storey into a bungalow to make things easier for Malachi to navigate, and he moved from nursery to primary school. Zach and Samuel moved from primary to secondary school, and I moved from secondary school to college to study childcare, as if I didn't do enough at home. In 2013, Malachi began complaining of headaches, which caused a huge concern over whether it was the tumour. He was rushed in for an emergency MRI, which flagged that there was a lot of swelling in his ventricles, the part of the brain that drains the fluid. Malachi was then sent down for a CT scan and diagnosed with hydrocephalus, fluid and swelling on the brain. If left untreated, hydrocephalus is fatal. Malachi was sent down for brain surgery to fit a shunt, which would help his brain drain the fluid and keep the ventricles down. As I was older by this point, I would come home from college and make dinner for the others, or stay overnight with them while Dad and Mum stayed with Malachi at the hospital. The complexity of brain surgery meant that things were very uncertain. Between March 2013 and April 2015, Malachi had 14 brain surgeries due to complications with the shunt. In the summer of 2013, I went on a bike ride with the local young carers group and was asked by the support worker what my plans were now that I had finished college. My answer was that I had no idea, but it needed to involve a full-time job, as Mum and Dad needed my support financially, as the benefits would change once I was no longer in education, and I was almost 18. It was on this bike ride that I was offered an apprenticeship with the Young Carers Project, based in the Hub, and I've been here for 2.5 years now, as the Young Carers trainee. Working for the Young Carers Project has been amazing. I feel like I'm giving something back, almost like a thank you for the support that was given to me, and at the same time I'm helping other young carers who are going through what I've been through. My managers and the rest of the staff are so understanding too. When Malachi was having all of his brain surgeries, I had to take a lot of time off to take Zach and Samuel and Aisha to various appointments. And it's so good to know that I have a supportive workplace where they understand that sometimes life gets a little crazy. Don't get me wrong, I wouldn't take time off unless I absolutely have to, but knowing that I can if I need is a weight lifted off my shoulders. Since his last shunt revision in April last year, Malachi's hydrocephalus has stabilised, although due to the amount of pressure on his brain from the tumour and the hydrocephalus, Malachi now has developed epilepsy as well. He's been put on medication to control his seizures, but the brain activity caused by the epilepsy has affected his sleeping pattern. Malachi's brain only tells him that he needs 4 hours of sleep a night, and so he is on medication to help him sleep. The epilepsy had caused too much stimulation in his brain, and so now he doesn't sleep at night. We're waiting for another room to be built on our house, as Malachi currently doesn't have his own room, so we'll alternate between sleeping in Mum and Dad's room on school nights, to choosing at the weekends between sharing Zach's bed or sleeping on the floor in mine and Aisha's room. He's learnt that other people do need sleep, and so will play on his iPod in bed when he wakes up. But he will wake us up to get him a Freddo and a glass of milk in the middle of the night. 2016 will bring sleep studies and many more hospital visits, I'm sure. Hopefully the tumour in the hydrocephalus will remain stable, and once he has his own bedroom, he'll start to sleep better. I've been working on the Young Carers project at Imago now for nearly 3 years, and have seen so much variety in the different caring roles. I love working where I do, and knowing that I'm making even a small difference to someone's life is so rewarding.